Okay, it is my pleasure and honor this night to welcome Professor Ahmed Halawa, who is the speaker today, and we are sorry about the technical delay of the meeting. Professor Halawa is the Consultant General and Transplant Surgeon, Sheffield Kidney Institute, Sheffield Teaching Hospital, Associate Professor, University of Liverpool, and he's the Program Director of Postgraduate Education and Transplantation in the University of Liverpool. The area of interest of Professor Halawa is kidney transplantation, transplant immunology, surgery of parathyroid gland, and postgraduate education. I myself admire his talent in education because I think the situation of Professor Halawa is unusual. He is a transplant surgeon in one university where he did his clinical activities and mastering the technique of education in another university. Both of them are prestigious universities. So I'm very happy and proud that Professor Halawa is the Director of Renal Transplantation Science at University of Liverpool. And it is endorsed by British Transplantation Society, by the other societies, and the guidelines, Renal Association guidelines. I respect these guidelines because the majority of guidelines came from the Renal Association, are very practical, and they announced the master degree of transplantation endorsed by MESOT, Middle East Society of Organ Transplantation, and other societies. Because this is unusual, I like just to show you the aims of this program. The aim of this program of Professor Halawa, the transplantation activity at Liverpool, the program is aiming to provide specialist clinicians working in the field of renal transplantation with a systematic and in-depth knowledge and understanding of renal transplantation science, skills to evaluate critically current research in renal transplantation, the skills to evaluate critically clinical service through developing new insight from informed by current research, deeper understanding of the mechanisms which underlie modern clinical practice in transplantation, a flexible and structured approach to continuing professional development. And I'd like to say that Professor Halawa was unique because he started this journey of online master degree before Corona by many years. So congratulations, Professor Halawa, for this unique, and I think it is not repeated in other universities. His academic profile is very nice. 76 international presentation, 127 publications, 2 book chapters, the editorial in many scientific journals, and one of the very important talent in music. He is a musician. So he composed and transposed more than 100 music sheets, Egyptian and Western, to be played by flutes. He is a flute talented musician. He visited Egypt, and all of us here in Egypt are appreciating his efforts through mastering the technique of parathyroidectomy, teaching parathyroidectomy for Egyptian surgeons, and we learned it from Professor Amr that we should be gentle. So parathyroidectomy in a gentle way, this is a very nice technique done in Mansoura, in Upper Egypt with Professor Ali Taha, Sohag, Aswan with Dr. Halil Al-Abedi, and even at Urology and Nephrology Center last year, he performed 4 difficult cases of parathyroidectomy. So we are appreciating this effort. The second axis of activities is education. Professor Halawa is actively participating in education in Egypt, in SNT, CME activities, a lot of educational activities. And the last talk was CMEV, and he moderated the cases discussion with Professor Riyad Saeed through 4 cases of transplantation. So we appreciating the efforts of Professor Halawa. Today, it is my honor to have my great friend and brother, Professor El-Husseini. He is the professor of nephrology and the medical director, University of Kentucky in USA. He is dedicated and specialized in metabolic bone disease and other activities And this is the career evolution of Professor Amr. Many centers, starting from Urology and Nephrology Center, and moved to many centers in Canada, USA, until he is now the full professor of nephrology at Kentucky University. Also, Professor Amr enriched CME activities through giving a good insight in the renal dystrophy. We learned so much from Professor Amr and from his experience during his presentations, and through the Professor Faisal Shaheen presentation, when Professor Amr chaired in the detailed discussions that reflected his deep experience in the field of renal dystrophy. So we are glad to have both Professor Halawa and Professor Amr with us this night. This is the profile, the research profile is fantastic. 73 publication, H index 20, and this is the very prestigious figure. Today we will learn from Professor Halawa the talent how to be good presenter. So 2 parts of presentation skills. Both of them are fantastic, and then they will leave an impression to us to improve our capabilities as teachers. And I'd like just to share Professor Halawa into quotes. The first one, I like this because this means that we can be trained to be good speakers. All the great speakers were bad speakers at first. This is a hope. Even if I am not good speaker, I can develop skills to be good speakers and to be impressive. The second quote of Albert Einstein, my friend, I respect his quotes so much. If you cannot explain it simply, and this is the most important, to be simple. If you cannot explain your aims in the presentation simply, you don't understand it well enough. This means when I decided to have a presentation, I should prepare myself, because failure to prepare is preparing to fail. I should like to stop here, leaving the mic to Professor Amr El-Husseini until Professor Halawa shared his slides.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hussein, for this fantastic introduction. I cannot beat Dr. Sheashaa with anything that he does, everything he wins. Today, I have the pleasure also to introduce one of my best friends, Dr. Halawa. Dr. Halawa, what I like about Dr. Halawa is his humbleness. I just get to know that he was graduated from the medical school in Egypt, 1983. I thought all the time when I talk to him, I feel like I'm talking to a youth, a young man. He is probably older than me in many years, but his soul is very young. And one of the best things I learn from him, every single time I talk to him, he leaves me with a big smile. You end the conversation and you are full of happiness. So this is, something usually it's hard to get from most of your colleagues. I'm not talking about surgeons. I told him many times that when I talk to him, I'm a little bit scared and skeptical because he's a surgeon. I mean, this guy does a lot of fantastic, very good hand skill. I hear this quote. I'm going just to say it, that if you want to be a good surgeon, you should have falcon eyes, lion's heart, and Dr. Halawa's hands. So I will end up here, and without further ado, let Dr. Halawa introduce his wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Amr and Professor Hussein, for these nice words, which, this is very complimentary, actually. Surgeons are not that difficult, number one. Number two, yes, I do admit many surgeons have personality issues. They feel very important for no reasons. But at the end of the day, if you know that you don't know, you should be humble, because all of us don't know. There are many things we don't know in our life, what you know is just a little. So this is a fact of life. And as a fact of life as well, we keep learning. You know, if you stop learning, mean you are dying. So we carry on learning. And you know, I'm very, very actually impressed with this nice introduction, and you know, I'm very grateful to you. You put a smile on my face, you know, Professor Amr.
Thank you.
Regarding presentation skills, just before I start, we are learning how to present as we go along. So no one is a perfect presenter, but we have to learn as we go along. I'm repeating this again. I'm not criticizing anybody. I could be criticizing myself as well. So don't feel shy if you say that, you know, I did a mistake, or the slide was quite busy, or my presentation wasn't good, because it happens and will keep happening, but we keep learning. So I'm presenting the presentation skills in two parts. Let us start with part one. I'd like to acknowledge my friend and my colleague, Dr. Gawad, consultant nephrologist, the director and the founder of Nephrotube, who provided me with wonderful slides. To be honest, you know, without any compliment, Dr. Gawad is an excellent presenter. I have seen many of his presentations in many conferences. He hit the nail, he hits the point, which is, you know, very admiring. Why do we need these skills? Is it just to show off? No. If you are a clinician and you want your colleagues to acknowledge your effort, you have to be a good presenter. If you are a researcher and you want to present your research results, you have to pass a message clearly. If you are applying for a new job, you have to do a presentation, and you have to convince the panel that you are the right person for the job. Now, when you go for an interview, they ask you to present something, usually related to the new role. So you have to be a good presenter, at least for this interview. If you're applying for promotion at your workplace, again, promotion is not gifted, it's earned. So you have to present what you have done before and what's your future plan in order to award you the promotion. If your answer is yes, I'm interested, you need to know how to sell yourself properly. If the answer is no, don't waste your time with us and enjoy watching the television. In fact, executing a pitch perfect oral presentation is not an easy task. There are many rules and regulations to be considered, like the right amount of information, what you want them to know. Keep it simple. It's important. Keep it simple, and I will tell you why and how. Audiovisual support when needed. Be aware of the word when needed. Number of slides. How many slides I should present? 100, 200, 10? We need to find out together. The design of the slide as well. Your body language. You're not a dead person, so you have to be interactive and reactive. Your tone even makes a difference. Many presenters, unfortunately, tortured me by their awful presentations. whilst other did it very well. Find the right number of information. You have to remember that PowerPoint presentation should provide an overview, a general description on a given topic. It's not a textbook on a PowerPoint. It shouldn't be encyclopedic. Don't kill your audience with the fine details or too many citations. They don't need to know that. In reality, and if you remember, if the slides and the PowerPoint presentation or the presenter gave you a lot of information, you will be completely disconnected. And the presenter will be left with a bunch of people who are more interested in the lunch, in the free lunch, than your talk. So you have to keep them interested. You have to have a plan. You have to design your talk properly, rather than you give a talk. Keep your presentation about the topic, not the fancy slideshow, the animations, the wonderful slides. The slides are here to support you. The slide is part of the presentation, not the whole presentation. It's better to present your work, your experience, your reflection, rather than copying and pasting from a textbook, which I have seen it. And honestly, I was thinking of the lunch. One important fact you have to consider when you design your presentation, to break any complex slide down to several simple ones. Keep it simple. Professor Sheashaa actually, referred to one of the words, which means keep it simple. Let us take an example. If you are presenting complications, because I'm a transplant clinician, so let's just say complication like leak, hematoma, thrombosis of the renal allograft. And instead of putting all these complications crammed in one slide, crowded in one slide, with imaging, with some pictures, with some diagrams, it would be better to allocate all these three separately on a separate slides with more explanation. This would be a lot easier for the audience to digest it, to understand it. Keep it simple, my friends. The audiovisual. All of us fancy audiovisuals. We think it makes our presentation wonderful. No, actually, audiovisual, which is the slideshow, the slides itself, designed to reinforce your talk, rather than it is your talk. Take it from me, don't read the slides. And I'll tell you why. Your text should be limited. If you need a diagram to start with, to explain the results, yes, well and good. But you need to talk, you need to explain, rather than the diagram talks in your behalf. Don't forget, we have different learning styles. Some are audio, the vast majority are audiovisual. They would like to listen and read. Some are visual. They won't listen to you, but they look at the slides. So you have to accommodate all the three learning styles. Of course, there's another fourth learning style, which the one who's not engaged at all, not interested. But not learning style is not learning at all. Time. Using time to determine the right number of slides. I'm going to stress on this point. You need to practice your presentation in front of a mirror, in front of a friend, in your head, in your own, and gauge it. Again, it is a time allowed. It's quite insulting if you've been given 20 minutes to do a presentation and you keep talking forever after the 20 minutes. This is completely dysfunctional. When you do the rehearsal and you finish before the time, please don't make the slide busier. Add more slides. You can talk more, explain more, but don't make the slide busier. Even as a friend and a family member, how they feel about your presentation, and take it seriously. Practice your presentation and timing. You have to time it before. And this is actually what I did. Since we designed this presentation, and been practicing quite a lot. And I did time it. It will finish in 45 minutes. Using time to determine the right number of slides. Think of the speed at which you speak. And this is what helps you to gauge the timing as well. Remember, respect the allowed time given to you. And this is one of the pitfalls and one of the mistakes presenters used to do. Is selfishness, is thinking of themselves, how they look, rather than their audience. Did they understand the talk? So make yourself well understood, but not boring. Trust me, they will fall asleep and may start snoring. This is a true story. In one of the British Transplantation Society meeting in 2003, I went with one of my senior colleagues. And the talk was so boring. And what happened? We woke him up because he started snoring. Well, he was quite embarrassed. But actually, this is a message to the presenter that he was very boring. Do not use too many slides to show off. It's your audience, not yourself. Respect the time given to you. Also, do not use too few slides. They may not realize that you give them a presentation. It's not all about you scoring a presentation. I have done a presentation. I'm VIP and I have a presentation in one of the prestigious conferences. You should be informative. You shouldn't be telegraphic, but you shouldn't be encyclopedic as well. This, it is your right to take home message, to have a take home message. I put, cartoon of Einstein on the left. If you notice, don't listen to experts because no experts. They used to say the rule of 10, 20, 30. 10 slides, takes 20 minutes to present in a 30-minute talk. This is absolutely crap, rubbish. It's not written on stone. It's not written in the Quran. It's not written in the Bible. It's not real. Because every topic is different. And even every slide, each slide is different. Look to the cartoon on the right side, is mix and match. Try to combine number of text-based with image-based slides. Remember, some of the slides takes more time to present, so it will exceed the 2 minutes rule. Actually, there's no rule. Some of the slides you fly through. Does not need 2 minutes to present. It's all about common sense. Fine. This is one of the problems I'm facing with PowerPoint presentation, image-based slides. Poor quality images, no clear legends, no arrows. I can't tell where are the positive findings. Sometimes too many images on one slide. It looks like they put the images for decoration. It's not for decoration, it's for teaching. It's to pass a message. You need to be informative, but not encyclopedic. If you see this cartoon on the right side, this is called character called road runner. So you need to do that when you deal with common knowledge as introduction, for example, and you're talking to expert. I'm talking to expert today. I don't need to explain. If I'm talking about cyclosporin, I don't need to spend 5-6 slides talking about cyclosporin nephrotoxicity. Everybody knows that. We're dealing with expert. But if I'm presenting the talk to pharmacist or dentist or engineer, I have to give more explanation because we came from different background. So remember the road runner when you talk to experts. Some of the presenters are quite difficult. Once they, stand on the stage, will never leave. They talk forever. And they present nearly a textbook. It's showing off. Please don't show off. Be informative, but not encyclopedic. Give them a message, a conclusion. Slide design. Background. For me, this is personal. Dark text on a light background is ideal. Many of the colleagues use pattern backgrounds. It's awful. Difficult to read. You can use dark background with light text, but try to avoid pattern backgrounds because it dazzles the eye, can't read properly, and even difficult to upload on the computer or email. Bigger slides makes you confused. Trust me. The audience will disengage before you reach the bottom of this busy slide. Again, we're still talking about slide design. Use simple English. You don't need to be Shakespeare. Avoid negative statement, and especially unnecessary negative statements. No special habit, not married, no children. No, no, no. Stop mowing. You're not a cat. Avoid complex words. Avoid repeating yourself. Make some jokes, cartoons, to maintain your audience attention. Slightly be funny a bit. It helps, trust me. Tone and body language. Reading your slides gives monotonous tone. They fall asleep and start snoring. You might ask questions in the middle to keep them engaged. Eye-to-eye contact is important. It's respectful, actually. And the body language. You may not notice it, but it gives an indication about yourself. On the left-hand side, you look insecure. On the right-hand side, you look confident. Yes. Don't worry, the audience won't eat you alive. Don't point finger, cross hands, put your hand in the pocket, cross hands behind your back. Be normal, be natural. Eye-to-eye contact, you shouldn't look miserable, like on the left-hand side, this is a famous Egyptian actor, and don't look staring like that, intimidating on the right-hand side. But look like this, cheerful, smiling, interacting, beautiful if you're a lady. Font, of course, size does matter because you can't read them. Don't forget, some of us are visual. They need to read the slides. So use the right size. Too large size, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable to the eye at all. Also small side ones. It would be a lot worse if the incorrect size accompanied with this funny animations flying. I'm torturing you now. You won't like it. Size does matter, of course. Questions at the end. This is an important part of the presentation. To be honest, I don't respect any presentation without questions at the end. But it is a problem of the presenter if it took too long. It's a problem of the organizer who didn't plan it properly. Be patient with silly questions. Be patient with somebody who's trying to show off as well. You know, one of the audience read a nice paper last night related to the topic you're presenting and tried to show off in front of his colleague that he's updated. Be patient. Be patient. You may refer back to your presentation. If one of the audience asks you a question you don't know, it's not It's not that shameful. Come on. No. You may ask the audience, I don't know. Anybody knows? Anybody can answer this question. Trust me. There's a lot of things we don't know. What we know is little. I will give you some bad examples. And, I'm intentionally torturing you. Well, outcomes in anemia in kidney transplantation. Oh, look to the background. Awful. A combination of red background with dark writing. The slide is very busy. Trust me. It will start snoring before I reach the bottom of the slide. And if you read it carefully, I will leave you for 2 minutes to eyeball it, because I'm going to analyze it in bits shortly. Yeah, move on. What do you think? Yes, you were thinking rather than thinking. I'm sure you start snoring or starting texting your wife asking what she cooked for dinner. I won't blame you. This background either makes you sick or gives you a headache and dizziness. I'm sure one of the audience thinking of hanging you because very boring. Can't read the slides, background's awful. There are few words here. Indeed, however, moreover, whatever. Are they needed? What these fancy words? Do you need them on a PowerPoint presentation? Of course not. You can say it, but don't put it on the PowerPoint. PowerPoint should be informative, hitting the nail, hitting the point. These words were already on the slides I showed you. So what do you think about, however, on multivariate analysis, CMV anemia was not a significant risk factor for long-term patient mortality. This is one of my PhD student article. Can you see it? Yeah. So the p-value was not significant. So what the hell is going on? Why have I written this? Let us torture you more. There was significant reduction of GFR CMV group compared to non-CMV group at 1, 5, 10 years after kidney transplantation, p-value, significant p-value, without being associated with a significant reduction in graft survival. You notice here, there's a lot of repetitions, all right? And slide is wordy. What about spelling mistakes? Actually, the word spelling is wrong and mistake is wrong. Many of our colleagues are not careful when they put PowerPoint, when we write PowerPoint, because full of spelling mistakes. This is not acceptable. So I could summarize this busy, awful, with terrible background with a lot of repetition, spelling mistakes slide like this. CMV viremia 40%, CMV disease 1.3%, no significant increase in long-term graft survival, significant reduction in graft function without affecting graft survival. Full stop. Easy, simple, take-home message, very clear, nice background, few words, you can read it, you can digest it, you can remember it. We'll give you another example. This is again one of our activities, DCD pancreas, donation after cardiac death pancreas. Graft survival, patient survival, picture of the pancreas, picture of the operation, and on top. Oh, too many animations. You shouldn't be proud of this. This is not a right practice. Are you still with us? It's horrible. Are you still with us? Of course not. Are you still with us? I feel sick, of course. Because if you notice, font size, small, large, and there's a lot of flying. It's not comfortable to the eye. Look after your audience, look after your customers. Otherwise, they will feel sick. I'm still torturing you. What do you think? Yes, you were thinking rather than thinking. Awful. Of course, if this is your intention with multiple animations, horrible background, small font size, a lot of flying in, flying out, rounding, all sorts of things, they will kick you out. You won't come back. Especially if you don't respect the time given to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Halawa, for your presentation. I enjoyed it very much. And before giving the mic to Professor El-Husseini, I'd like just to give few comments. Presentation is a skill that we should develop. We should be serious in any presentation, and we should deal with the slides as helping tool. So the presentation is you, yourself, not the slide. But we should be careful about the slide design, as Professor Halawa mentioned. And there is only one word, a slide to be KISS. KISS, keep it simple and stupid. This means, as Professor Halawa mentioned, it not be fancy. A lot of animations are bad. Even when there was bad habit to put sounds in the PowerPoint is bad. PowerPoint is power. Power means to put only few points in the slide and to give you a time to explain. And to leave the mic to Professor Amr, I would like to end with only 2 points. When I have the chance to do training for presentation skills in the Faculty of Medicine, I usually start the workshop by a question. Why do we teach? Why we should teach? And the answer from the attendees to transfer our experience to. But my favorable answer is to satisfy the needs of attendees. What's meant by satisfaction of attendees is to impress and influence them. If I don't influence them, this means this is a great failure. And the last point, to not to be boring for a prolonged comment, questions and discussions. Usually the great difference between a great presenter and a bad presenter is giving time for discussion. Because if I prepare slides and I did many rehearsal, so I'll be perfect during the presentation. If I do the same during discussion, this will be very impressive. If I do a rehearsal and it was very nice presentation, but when the discussions started and I'm not good, the impression will be lost. So the advice is, as I mentioned in the beginning, to be serious, preparing ourselves for the contents and not for the slide alone only. So failure, again, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. We should deal with presentation as it is the task that the evaluation of the attendee will be immediately. Either they will be happy, and I can read the happiness in their eyes, or they are snoring, or they are disgusted from the presentation. Always we should satisfy the needs, and I should stop here because Professor Amr is with us, and I think he has many points to declare. Dr. Amr.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Dr. Halawa, for your excellent presentation, as usual. I think this is one of the hardest presentations I wouldn't give. If anyone invited me to give a presentation about how to be a good presenter or presentation skills, it's the toughest one. Like you're talking about wisdom. You have to be a role model, really. You have, if you're talking about presentation and presentation skills, it's very hard. I think if there is only one presenter who can do that, it would be Dr. Halawa. So thank you so much for this excellent presentation and taking responsibility, because it's not easy talk. Just a few comments. Presentation doesn't usually represent knowledge. I know a lot of people with very few knowledge, very limited knowledge, and when they present, they look like, wow, they are excellent presenters. On the other hand, I know guys who are very knowledgeable, have very good knowledge, and especially when it comes to medical knowledge and textbook knowledge, but when they present, they are awful. I mean, you cannot get anything from them. They don't respect time. They want to spell out all their beans, like giving you the whole textbook in a lecture, in 20 minutes lectures. And they are not organized. Their, the way they present their materials is just bad. Actually, I agree with both Dr. Halawa and Dr. Sheashaa when they mentioned that the discussion part is much more important. It's much better representative of the lecturer or the presenter than the presentation itself. It represents the knowledge. And as Dr. Halawa said, he doesn't respect anyone who doesn't allow audience to ask. I completely agree with that. I usually try to give much more time for discussion than just to present. I saw several, in several occasions, presenters, if they feel they are weak, they just want to fill the all time, so try not to give chances to audience to kill them with questions. And you can tell, it's very easy. Especially nowadays, there is this softwares. I saw, especially in Egypt, some people are using this software. They can read while they are showing something different. So they have this two, screens. They can show you something different than they can see. So they can just read the whole text while they are showing you graphics and figures and stuff. But these guys, you can easily, get them tricked while they are trying to answer questions. Just a very, very quick thing, and I'll stop by this funny thing. I remember one of the presentation, I heard this, occasion. I don't know exactly if it is true or not. I know that Dr. Sheashaa and Dr. Halawa both mentioned something about Albert Einstein. By the way, Albert Einstein, he has problems. He has, he cannot represent his ideas very well. And by the end of his life, he had some kind of depression. You know that he has ADHD, attention deficits, while he was young. and some dyslexia, so he cannot talk very well. Anyway, by the end of his life, while he has, has some depression and he is overwhelming with presenting everywhere all the time. So one time his driver, when he saw him sad and doesn't want to present, he said, "Can I present your lecture, sir?" So Albert Einstein said, "How can you present it? It's very technical and very sophisticated mathematics and equations." He said, "Every single time I come to drop you off to the lecture, I go and I sit by the end of the session and I hear your lecture. So I memorize it by my heart." So Albert Einstein, he agreed. He changed his clothes. And by that time, 1940s or so, they don't know the guys that, is going to hear from Albert Einstein. They don't know exactly what's his picture. So this guy just try to make his hair not organized as usual with gray hair. Then he went and gives a lecture, and everybody was very happy with the lecture. So by the end of the lecture, some guys asked him question, and he replied, very well. He addressed the question very well. Then while he is leaving, a guy stopped him and asked him very sophisticated question. He answered the previous question because they used to ask the same questions over and over. So he memorized it. But this guy asked him a question that he never, heard it from Albert Einstein. So this guy was very smart. So he said, "Oh yeah, this is very, very easy question. It's not tough at all. And because it's easy, I will let my driver to answer this question." And he just write it out to Albert Einstein. So, discussion is important, and knowledge, so presentation is not knowledge. There is some disconnect here. I will stop by here and let Dr. Halawa, and I thank Dr. Muhammad Abdawad as another presentation.
Yeah, I agree as well. I wanted to make it clear, presentation skills is different from clinical skills. But something is additive. It's synchronizing with your clinical skills. It's like fine tuning. It's something good to have. But a good presenter doesn't mean you are a good clinician. Bad presenter doesn't mean you're a bad clinician. This is a different skills, like our names, our age, our sex, our weight. So it's something different, completely different. Good presenter doesn't mean to be a good clinician. Also, good teacher doesn't mean to be a good clinicians. A lot of teachers are very good, but are not good clinicians. But it's nice to have both together, but it doesn't mean one does not lead to the other.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So I agree with you 100%, Dr. Halawa. And the one point I would like to add is any performance equal an equation. It's the ability multiplied by the willingness to do. So if I build my ability and then I am enthusiastic to do, or I believe in my duty, it will be fantastic because this is an equation. This is why when I invite any presenter, I am careful about his ability, his experience, plus his enthusiasm, because enthusiasm, as said in English, is contiguous. It is infectious.
Yes.
And it is transmitted to the audience. So this is the style. According to this character, the presenters are divided into resistor, and this is what we are confronted nowadays by many colleagues from the coming generations. They are resisting to speak. We are doctors, we should speak to the patients, speak to our colleagues. So these are resistors, are bad style. And there are acceptor who accepts. If you give him assignment to speak, he speaks, but he cannot coming to your office saying, "I'd like to present." And the third, which is I mentioned, ability and emotions to do, is a seeker. So this is what I'd like to develop in the trainers, even in the MD nephrology degree, is to trying to drag them into seeker attitude, because seeker means a person who will be who will like to improve health styles every minute. So as Professor Halawa mentioned, there are some principles, and we can train ourselves to improve our performance from day to day. So practice and practice and practice makes a big difference. I'd like to leave space for my professors and the colleagues in this webinar to give comments. We have many professors from Egypt and from Saudi. I'd like Professor Ahmed Adam to hear from him, because we missed him so much. Dr. Adam, your comment, Dr. Adam.
All right. Are you hearing me well?
Yes, yes.
All right. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Halawa and Professor Al-Husseini. I missed your prestigious things, Professor Hussein, because maybe the time,
Okay.
that's why it is Friday. Anyway, I have just 1 or 2 minutes to make a comment.
Okay.
I address it as conference audience programming presentation. Because what I'm going to say is on this title. It is related to the conference and audience which affect your presentation. Because the word simple, which emphasized during this session, is not written on stone. Because simplicity, if it is not in the perfect setting, may not simple. Because if I'm speaking about CMV in transplantation treatment in an expert, they want to know exact detail, exact reference, exact wording, because that's they want to listen. But if in undergraduate, just know the title. The second thing related to the same point is the question directed planned, because from the start, and actually it depends about the conference, because if it is 5-10 minutes, I will not speak about that, but I'm open like this. From the start, I will share or engage the audience. If they want to stop every 15 minutes, and I pre-plan this to get questions so as not to lose track after 45 minutes. And back to the end of the session, end of the talk. Of course, the discussion is important, but as in Egypt, it must be guided by the chairperson. This is his job, because the Egyptian love to talk exceeding the time. But the comment to Professor Halawa, he mentioned silly question. There is no silly question, although I usually say when I ask a question, it is a naive, so as to get that is, if it is naive actually. But there is no silly question. And the other side of the coin, if somebody wants to show, he said, be patient. Actually, the approach may be completely the opposite by being polite. I remember maybe 20 years ago, a very big star asked me after presentation of a case, all right, you didn't do CRB, and this is actual story. And my reflection is, yes, I didn't do the CRP, but please, professor, tell me how the CRP will affect my management in this case. And that's why he didn't answer, because I'm not saying that I'm good, but sometimes it is not being patient, but reverse the story to the one. The last thing I must mention in Egypt also, the people like to put the hand in the pocket because they think they are professor and a big stars, and they love putting the hand in the pocket. Actually, my impression is not confidence. That's why he put it in the pocket. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Halawa. I think, Professor Adam, I think the most important point is not, I think, simple means to simplify, because to have a time to digest your information, simplify it to appear as simple, this is the art. And I remember one of the Prime Minister in UK, when he spent 1 hour to speak, and at the end he said, I don't have good time to prepare to shorten my talk, to simplify rather than to make it complex. This is what's meant by simplicity. And
can I
yes.
reflect to this point, please?
Yes.
Because even in any part of our life, if anybody admit that he did something wrong or not complete, he deserves what is the comment later on. So if he said, I didn't have the time to make it simple, so the impression to all the audience, you did a bad job.
Yes.
And you confess.
Okay, so this is a regarding the issue of question. I have a good experience when I was invited since more than 12 years in one of the beautiful cities to speak 15 minutes about basiliximab experience in live kidney donor transplantation. So I decided to prepare myself well. I read in depth, and then I made a rehearsal to end in 10 minutes. So it's 15 or 11 minutes. So I left 4 minutes for discussion. I was asked in 4 minutes, 11 questions, and I answered them perfect. So the impression was very nice. So I learned from this moment to leave time for question. And when I was asked anytime by one of my colleagues what I can do in the conference, I said to him, if you are confident, leave time for questions. If you are not confident, as Professor Amr mentioned, just make it very long until they say to you, please go to the conclusion because we have no time, because of time restriction. So the more confident the person is, the more, and sometimes I make hawking technique. I put a word or a sentence, and I know it will bring a question to me, and I am already prepared for this question. By answering the questions, I am very impressive. Regarding
can I add? Oh,
yes.
right, I'm sorry. Can I add one thing? Because
yes.
actually this is already said by Professor Halawa. The simple thing you say, I don't know. That's actually the approach. In Egypt, it is a crime to say that I don't know.
No. According to, if I prepare myself well and answer the job, 80% or 90% of questions answered, 10% of questions, it's okay to say I don't know. But if I say I don't know for 10 questions, this means I didn't prepare myself. Regarding silly persons, yes, there are some silly questions. No silly persons. Sometimes there are attacking persons. If I deal with one of the seniors who asking me, you presented in a very bad style and you conducted bad message while I am preparing a professional presentation, then how to reply to him? So this is how to deal with this. I cannot say silly person, but silly situation. It is bad situation.
Actually, silly questions, Professor.
Yes.
They are silly questions. We have to admit. Somebody fell asleep during the talk and came up with a question, being very actually naivety. We're talking to professionals. Naivety is not acceptable.
So I'd like to also to leave the space. Thank you very much, Professor Adam, to one or two of our professors. So here there is Dr. Kaiser Muhammad. Yes, he raised his hand. We'll take his comment first, and then Dr. Kaiser. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I am from Pakistan, and I have the privilege to be a student of Dr. Halawa.
You are welcome.
And I am a nephrologist. I worked 10 years in Holy Makkah with my great Egyptian friends, and I love Egyptian people and Egypt. Now it is 1:30, nearly 1 hour in the night at Pakistan, and I am listening your beautiful talk. Excellent presentation by Dr. Halawa and Dr. Amr, and you also guided us very nicely. And I agreed that excellent presentation is that nobody even blink the eye. They should be very carefully listening to you. I think like this. So thank you very much, sir. Give me time and excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaiser. Dr. Ham Al-Aggan, Professor Hayam. Yes, Professor Hayam.
You hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
Thank you very much for very excellent and informative and stimulating talk for Dr. Halawa, and welcome also Dr. Amr. My questions about, can you make all the slides bold to be seen by the end of the presentation, or in the end of the place can see these slides? Can make all bold, or it is a bad things to make it bold for the slide or for the writing?
For the letters.
Yes.
So there is one of the rules: don't over capitalize, because
Not
over
capital, to be bold, to be thick, bold.
Yes, bold is okay. There is Dr. Halawa. Do you like to answer? Yes.
Bold. Do you mean actually? You know, they are not comfortable to the eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, all the slides being bold, especially with a large size font, it won't be comfortable to the eye. So just think about, you know, how you look at it, how you feel about it. You know, as I mentioned, there's no Einstein in presentation. In good presentation, it is just it's your common sense. But you know, capital letters difficult to read. Bold letters difficult to read.
I mean,
large size letters difficult to read. Small size letters difficult to read. A lot of flying in, flying out is difficult to read.
Okay. What about the font size? It is better to be seen. It is less than more than 20 or 24. The better. What is the most common
yes.
font?
You know, this is personal opinion. Honestly, is 24, 28. You know, it suits me very well. And actually, I look at it. You know, I'm comfortable with it. If I'm comfortable, most likely you'll be comfortable with it.
Okay. The putting a table with multiple information, as if something, you get the papers of different authors and make it in a table. Sometimes we don't see anything of this table. Is it allowable to say this is a previous researcher or research about this talk and make it in a table? Is that allowable or not?
I mean, you can, you know, everything is allowed. You can do whatever you like. But do you think they will take this message home?
Yeah.
What's the idea behind this table? What's the principle behind this table? Are you putting some information about this table? What the message about this table? If you're looking at certain references, actually, if you notice, I didn't put a single reference. Do you know why? Because plenty, millions have been through all these references, so I couldn't write all of them.
Okay.
So, you know, but the message is you have to make it clear what you want to know. Imagine yourself sitting on the front seat of the you know, at the audience.
Yeah.
What you want to know.
Yes. Okay. And the other reverse, if I are the chairperson, it is allowable to stop the speaker, whatever he's finished or not finished, to make for strict for the time, or it is, can you allow him? Because if you allow everyone 2 minutes, 1 minute, the time of discussion will disappear. But do you think to be strict in the time with the speaker?
If you allow Professor Halawa, because this stimulates me to have a presentation, how to moderate a session.
Yes.
So I'm going to prepare a presentation, a second or on the second presentation for presentational style, how to moderate the session. Because sometimes we find the chairperson just saying, good, Professor Halawa, it's okay, fine. Thank you, Professor Halawa, no time for questions. This is not the task of the chairperson. The chairperson to moderate the session in a very nice way. There are professional style, and will prepare a presentation to answer, to present how to moderate and to answer all the comments about this point.
Okay,
but because of thank you very much, Professor Hayam. Because of the time restriction, I'd like to hear from Professor Faisal Shaheen in 1 minute, and then Professor Saeed Khamis in 1 minute, and then go directly to the second part of presentation. Professor Faisal.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hussein. Thanks, Prof. Halawa. I enjoy your talk very much, actually. It is excellent. And I am sure that the representative should know that he is giving a message to the audience, and he should be very honest on whatever he said. So he should first know exactly that this message is the honesty of the transmitting or transferring knowledge from someone who's supposed to be more knowledgeable or at least know about this subject to some people who's going to flow. So honesty is very important in any presentations before giving it. So he should feel that from inside. The second point, which maybe you don't like about the reference, I think it is important to have some reference for which is going to be again to the people and should be referred to the someone who said it before. Because if someone just presented as he is the one who is doing it, probably there is no honesty in that. Thank you.
I like the second comment because this is one of my comments that I wrote here in the paper, because I am a person who believes in the references. I respect the reference but I agree with Professor Halawa. There is no necessity to write 7 references in one slide. It's not an article or textbook. This is why in my presentation, the first point I declare in the slide is the citation, how to go to the citation to know details and to review. So I am a great believer in the citation and references, to the extent one of my very long presentation for 2 hours, one slide was missing the reference. And I received an email from one of my colleagues asking me, I like this algorithm in this slide, but I don't know the source. So I wrote in the video, on the commentary on the video, all references are perfectly written except the slide that appears in the time 40 minutes, 45 seconds, and the reference is so and so. So yes, we should write references, but we shouldn't be overdoing in putting 7 references in one slide. It makes no sense at all. Dr. Halawa.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned in the second slide, you don't need to, kill us with millions of references. We know it's not your work. It's not my work, honestly. And actually, it is, collection of all what I've read over the last month, maybe while I'm preparing for this slide. In addition to, I use University of Liverpool resources. In addition to, I use my reflection on my on my presentation and others' presentation as well. Yes, important key references are. It would be good.
So sometimes if I do digest and there is no real reference for the slide, at the end I can write the recommended resources for further reading. But even if I consider one of my articles, because you can find one of the attendee wants just to know the details of this article, he can go to it. So I think we can take the agreement. We shouldn't put many references in one slide. And if this is a digest, like plagiarism, we write it without references, and we can write at the end further readings. Thank you very much, Professor Faisal, for this valuable point. Professor Saeed Khamis, the last comment.
Thank you, Professor. Thanks to Professor Halawa and Professor Amr. One comment and one short question. The comment is, I do believe in that making a dim light and the monotonous speaker, it is the most potent hypnotic all over the world, actually. That's my point. Number 2, the question is, do you see, Professor Halawa and Professor Amr, that this unfairness, from the unfairness is to compare one British or American or Australian, I mean mother tongue is English, conducting a lecture or presentation compared to a French or Dutch one speaking in English, because most of if not all the conference language is English. So how can you solve this problem, or how can you evaluate this problem? Thank you so much.
Yeah, actually, second question is easy to answer. You don't need to be Shakespeare. You need what you simple English. As simple as that, you practice. you practice your presentation. You shouldn't prepare your presentation the night before the presentation or just the morning before the presentation. Practice your presentation. As simple as that. Simple English. It's very simple English. You don't need to write poems. You know,
Yeah.
it's simple English.
Okay. Thank you.
And actually, I have seen French, and I've seen Dutch, I have seen even German, you know, presenting in English. And after the presentation, when you ask them questions, you don't understand. They didn't understand me. So the English was no good, but the presentation was perfect. Why? Practicing and simple English.
I have some comments.
Yes, Professor Amr. Yes, please.
First of all, do you agree to disagree?
For what?
I'm asking first. Do you agree to disagree? So we can have disagreement on something?
Ah, yeah. Do you mean you agree or disagree on the presentation or anything I presented?
Agree to disagree. It's just a concept that we agree to disagree with each other.
Go ahead, Dr. Amr.
Okay.
You are a philosopher. You are a philosopher, Professor Amr.
Don't take me wrong on this. Or a comment. When you presented a bad picture of, you know, presentation or how they look, the bad model that you don't want us to be look, you know, like these persons, you give us Egyptian actors pictures. When you want to give us a good example how we should look like, you give us a blonde European smiley lady. I can take this as, you know, racism. So how do you comment on that?
No, by all means, it's funny, rather than racial discrimination. You know, I belong to this background. I'm not blonde. I'm not. I am a beautiful lady, hopefully.
So why did you
Not charming, you know. I'm bald. So it's basically, you know, it is just funny slides to make you laugh, to keep you entertained. But you know, it's not racial discrimination because I belong to these people.
Right. But I think in general, I know that you're going to these people, but I think in general, we try to avoid, even here in America, they are very sensitive when it comes to African American, to black person and white person, to just, you know, both blacks in, you know, as thief or looks bad or doing something bad, and try to give good example of Caucasian or white people. There is, you know, Black Lives Matter, you know. So
No, actually, this is important to consider. Actually, this is a good point, Professor Amr, because you need to consider the culture and the concepts in this culture as well. Yes, in the States, yes, you know, of course. But you know, in UK, we don't have this problem. Sometimes we, you know, because 93% of the population are white, 7% are non-white, like me. So we accept that sometimes we make funny jokes even on the white. You know what I mean? It's but you know, you're quite surprised that you know that the British have good sense of humor. They used to be, you know, thought that, you know, a bit cold, no facial expression. No, but you know, they have good sense of humor.
Right.
And there is a very thin barrier between to be humorous
and sarcastic.
Yeah. I don't like I don't like the overdoing in this issue. To be smiling, yes, but to be in a professional way, because sometimes we have presenters who are overdoing in this point. There is a comment here from Dr.
So, Hussein, can I just comment on something related to this issue?
Okay, please.
Culture, ethnicity, religion, gender, we have to be very sensitive.
Yes.
Even I was talking to Professor Hussein the other day about some people, they bought religious material in their presentation. We know that most of us in Egypt are Muslim, but we still have Christians and others. And here we are talking about science and knowledge. We don't mix. If you want to give a lecture, in deen or religion, you go to the church or you go to the mosque. Here, we have to be very sensitive. So
1000% agreement, to the extent in one of the presentation through the Zooms a couple of weeks ago, I made pause of the recording, stopping recording Quran. I don't like to mix the papers. We are speaking. Yeah.
I know you love Quran more than anybody else, including me.
But it is not professional.
Like it or not, we have to stay away from, debates and differences.
Yes.
When it comes to culture,
yes,
religion, and even gender identity.
We should respect the heterogeneity, and we should speak about common grounds. To the extent to Dr. Amr, in the outpatient clinic, I'd like to hear to Quran from special sheikhs. And if the coming patient is non-Muslim, I switch off Quran before he enters the room. This is one of the ethics, not to disturb and not to make him embarrassed by my religion. So I think it is the ethical code to respect the others.
When it comes to politics,
yes,
politics and scientific presentations, even if you know your audience, the majority of them, they will agree, even if there is, one person who doesn't like what you're talking about or have disagreement. So you need to stay from, any debates in politics or religion. And the other major thing here, I don't know about Egypt, but because also you remember all of these presentations are on YouTube, right?
Yes.
So different, people with different ethnicities and backgrounds, you hear and you watch these videos on YouTube. So you have to be. So we have something here called LGBTQ community. So your gender is a major issue here. So try to be very sensitive also to differences in gender or how people express their gender. It's very.
You are right. Right, 100%. Even in one small class in Egypt, we can find some people who have special accent. We shouldn't make sarcasm about the accent because we should respect. This is the culture, and we should respect the candidates, whatever his religion, his politics, anything. We have a comment on the chat from Dr. Gigi. This is a very nice comment because even if I repeat the presentation for the 100th time, I should prepare myself before the 100th presentation. Because if I say I am updated, everything is fine, it will be very difficult for me to face the audience without preparation. Don't forget, failure to prepare is preparing to fail.
I have a nice comment here, which is actually, when he talks, which was me, about Egyptian actors, it was in the context of facial expression, not cultural conception.
Yes.
Sorry, you still remember.
Thank you, Dr. Ken, for defending me.
Okay.
Yes, true. It's all about facial expression. It was all about eye-to-eye contact.
Right.
Yes. Would you please, Professor Halawa, go to the second part first?
Can I say just
Yes.
one more comment?
Sure,
Yes.
sure.
This is just the way that I do my presentation. First slide is the title. Second is the conflict of interest.
Yes.
And third is the objectives. So let's just talk a little bit about both the second and third slide. So conflict of interest is very, very important. And here in USCE, you have to declare any of your disclosure. Because actually some people, if you have any conflict of interest with pharmaceutical company or anything else, they wouldn't like to attend your lecture because there is some kind of bias. So every single presenter here has to declare his conflict of interest before starting, talking on his, presentation. Other thing is objectives. So the way that so the presentation is bi-directional thing. We all presenter here are under evaluation. Once they finish their lecture or presentation, they give us evaluation forms to fill it in and to evaluate the presenter. And they use these evaluation forms, and I actually encourage Professor Hussein to do this in the future. So it's customer review. So we are providers and there's a customers. So we have to see if the customers like the thing that you are selling or not, right? So it's very
Right.
important and it's very objective. It's not about you like it or not. There is, several questions about the scientific merits, scientific contents, about the way they present, about the conflict, about if they actually achieved whatever they targeted. So the objective is very important in this because by the end of the lecture, the audience is going to evaluate the presenter if they really understood what he was supposed to explain or teach them.
Full agreement, Dr. Amr, and I started to put announcements even in the introduction of the Zoom meetings that there is nothing to declare and no industrial promotion in our presentation. Thank you for this point because you are the first one who asked me to do so. Thank you very much. I think it is ethical and political to put all these points in the presentation. Professor Halawa, would you please go to the second part?
Yeah, presentation skills, second part. Stay with me, hopefully you haven't slept. Impact of good presentation. Career progression, such as promotion, new job, high position at work. You do what you like to do, enjoy what you are doing. You became the authority and the reference. Popular at work, you can get higher up in the job ladder, always ask for advice. Your opinion will be always considered. Be happier, enjoying work, and comfortable. Earning more, comfortable work life, well respected. You become a national and internal figure in your subspecialty if you want it. Impact of bad presentation. You lose the engagement of the audience. They become less interested in your talk. You may leave in the middle of your presentation. They may leave in the middle of your presentation, which of course, very embarrassing. They may also start talking to each other. At the end of your talk, they may ask you questions you have already mentioned. There's also a room to show off where one of the audience starts challenging you by asking questions out of the context of the talk. You may not be asked again to give a talk and lose popularity at work and lose your national and international reputation. You also may lose popularity at work and get ignored and become difficult to get promotion and earn more money to the extent you leave the job, not able to find another job, which is drastic effect on the family life, and you may get depressed. So how to draw the attention of the audience? Present the significant results, briefly describes the negative results, supply tables that can demonstrate the results clearly, asterisks on the significant results, provide a brief description of the statistics used, table with clear headings, tables accompanied by diagrams, use different colors, avoid faint or very bright colors, use the right size of the diagrams, explain the diagram in detail on the text, use animation when appropriate, give more time to any complex slide. Speak slowly and clearly. So what do you think? So my question is to the audience. What's your impression about good and bad presentation? Yeah?
Excellent presentation as usual, sir. We cannot say anything.
Dr. Saeed Khamis.
Sorry, Professor Halawa, it is not an excellent presentation. It is you made all what you criticized in the first part, you made it in the second part. Very crowded, very busy slides. You read from the slide like a very junior doctor. You didn't give us in a monotonous tone. So I know that you are doing this for teaching us the mistakes to learn, but it is not a good way to teach.
Oh,
what do you think?
This is shocking, Saeed.
But you give us a chance to sleep, and I have very nice dreams, so it might be good as well.
I need to know more comments, hopefully complimentary from the audience. Yeah,
anyone wants to give?
Don't shy, guys.
Feel free. Feel free.
There are no comments in the chat.
Right.
Dr. Ahmed Yahya. Dr. Ahmed Yahya, comment in English, please. Ahmed. Where is Ahmed?
Ahmed, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. It's called the power of respect. Sometimes when we respect.
Yes, yeah. I agree totally with Professor Saeed. It was rubbish, absolute rubbish. Why? I was reading the slides. Font size was quite small. There's a lot of flying in, flying out, and even sometimes font size was quite large, not comfortable to the eye. Slides crowded, full spelling mistakes. To draw attention is wrong, and many other spelling mistakes. Look how to draw attention. Come on, I'm repeating myself here a lot. We call it in UK fluffing around, or basically these slides are just waffles. Very busy slides, very busy slide. Again, reading the slides. Small font size, repeating myself. So yes, this is an example, real example of bad presentation. We should avoid all these pitfalls.
If you allow me, Professor Halawa, full respect is there. Just I'm commenting on what's going on. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Fine. So we'll open the questions and answer if any questions.
Okay. I think we have many comments after the end of the first part, and your presentation, as Professor Amr mentioned, it is very nice, clear, informative, and it is principles to how to do professional presentation. But my point, this is what I end with for presentation workshop here at Mansoura University. After doing all these, how to prepare slides, how to put the tables, how to put figures, etc. I say at the end, if you know your way to your audience, having satisfaction by 100%, leave all what I mentioned. Because as I said in the beginning, we do teach for satisfaction, for professional satisfaction. If I can go with other principles, it's okay. But these principles are within the professional advices for any presenter. Thank you very much, Professor Halawa. And if there is any point I'd like to hear, do you like to add any comment to Professor Amr?
Yeah, I completely agree
Yes.
with both of you. And we have to be flexible and we have to adjust and accommodate. I hear this, comment about if you're doing this presentation over and over, in the 100th time, you have to be prepared. Also, you have, because audience, they are different at, different times, even same audience with different beliefs or different time, we might need to adjust and accommodate the differences. If you are talking about a heavy lunch, it's different from if you are talking early in the morning. If you are presenting in the first day of the conference, it's different from if you are presenting last lecture of the conference while everybody is leaving the hotel. So we have, if you're presenting in Egypt, it's very different from if you're presenting at London or USA. If you are presenting to medical students, the approach that you get attention and satisfaction from these students is very different if you are approaching professors or people who came in with experience and knowledge. So we have to understand, because in the medicine now, we call it patient-centered approach, right? When you treat patient, you have to focus on the patient, not on our science or our knowledge or ourselves as healthcare provider. Same thing here, if you're giving presentation, you have to focus on, the people that you are delivering the message to, not about yourself or the content, more than the listeners. I really appreciate.
This is what I believe in, Dr. Amr, is attendee centeredness. Attendee centeredness. This is what I mean by satisfy the needs of the audience. I like the slide of Professor Halawa about the different styles of every person to learn. There is visual, auditory, kinetic. This is why we should make diversity and use all these facilities, visual, audio, and body language, because this will deal with the heterogeneity. And this is one of the, I think this is one of the principles how to be attendee centered.
I saw in different
Yes.
circumstances when the presenter is seeing the audience are not connected, he tried to ask them to stand up or to run or to dance. Sometimes he sings for them to get their attention. So it's a skills. It's an act. And as Professor Sheashaa and Professor Halawa said, by the end of the day, the audience are our buyers. We are the sellers, and they are the buyers. So we should know how to sell our stuff to the buyers.
So this is our task. Dr. Saeed Khamis, the last comment. Dr. Saeed.
Thank you, Dr. Halawa, really for this excellent talk, especially the first part for sure, and even the second part, despite it is tricky for us, but I will never forget this way of teaching. You explore the wrong way of presentation to remind us to avoid this way. Thanks for this. Second thing, and the last question is, is it mandatory to know the nature of the audience? For example, if you will conduct a lecture or presentation for non-nephrologist or fellow nephrologist. It is different. I mean, nephrology for nephrologist, nephrology for non-nephrologist. So I should know the nature of the audience before the preparing or conducting the presentation. And thank you so much for you and for Professor Amr.
Of course, because, if you've been invited to talk, to give, a talk about, FSGS to a nephrologist, Of course, you'll be talking about, electron microscopy, very advanced, all these types of FFGS and hereditary forms and recurrence and management, very sophisticated, But if you're going to talk, about FFGS to undergraduates or non-professional, you have to explain what FFGS means and what's the general criteria of, and what is proteinuric, the GN, and all sorts of things. And, you'll be more, simplistic in your reply. Also, when, you talk to the expert, you should be flying through the common things. Everybody knows the classification of FFGS. You don't need to spend, 2 minutes talking about it because they know about it. You know what I mean? You just focus on the most important points in FSGS rather than giving, a didactic talk to as if you are dealing with undergraduates. Of course, you should know. And even sometimes, if one of the I used to do this actually, when we have one of the audience asking questions, I'm asking him, where do you work? At least, I can tailor the answer based on his knowledge and based on his experience. So
if you allow me, Professor Halawa, yes, I should know the background of audience and prepare myself. If I find in the real presentation there is a change in the demographics beyond my expectation, I should be dynamic, changing the presentation to cope with the styles. Sometimes we face funny situation in this issue to prepare a very basic presentation for non-nephrologist, non-doctor, and then you'll find expert and professors sitting, all the whole is professors in the specialty. So I should change the presentation and know how to speak to them in a dynamic way. I think it's better to stop at this point. I'd like to thank and appreciate Professor Ahmed Halawa, and this is just a symbol of appreciation from Egyptian Society of Nephrology Continuous Medical Education chapter in recognition of his distinguished contribution in delivering a session and this session presentation skills. And we are sorry for any technical problems that embarrassed Professor Halawa before starting. It is a promise to organize a session, another session, and I'm going to invite one of the very professional in conducting the session, how to moderate a session, because there are many important principles, and I think this is one. All of us can present, all of us have facility, have from good to bad, very good, excellent, but I think it is deficient, totally deficient in many countries, in Egypt and others, how to moderate a session. It is not only, I'm going to present the Professor Halawa, thank you, Professor Halawa. Yes, this is one part, but it's not the whole story. It is not the chairing or moderating a session. So I think it will be very nice complementary to this presentation, how to share a session. Also, I'd like to thank and appreciate Professor Amr, because we assumed that we meet at 8 p.m. and there was delay 1 hour. And I know that his agenda is fully booked. So thank you very much, Professor Amr, for waiting and for sharing and for all valuable comments that enriched this session. Thank you very much. And I'm leaving the mic to Professor Halawa to say the last sentence in this meeting.
I would like to say one sentence too.
Okay, before Professor Halawa, yes, go ahead, Amr.
I really enjoyed this presentation. Just Dr. Halawa is an amazing person. I cannot imagine the efforts and the activities that he's doing. When I talk to him as a nephrologist, I think he's very knowledgeable nephrologist. When I talk to him, while he's talking about surgery, I have no clue what he's talking about. I heard a lot of presentation from him. Interestingly, he is multitask, multidisciplinary person that he talks on, for parathyroid, medical and surgical standpoint. He talks about transplantation, medical and surgical aspects. He talks about research, and now he is teaching us how to be a good presenter. Actually, that's amazing, and I learned a lot from him. And as I said, he always leaves me with knowledge and a smile. Thank you so much, sir, and I really appreciate and acknowledge your presentation and your teaching.
I agree with you 100%. He is unusual. He is talented in many issues, and one of his merits in the summit of all what you mentioned, Professor Amr, his humbleness. He is humble, and he is a positive person. He wants and he seeks to be positive and to help others. So this is the mic to hear to the last sentence from the great star, Professor Halawa.
Thank you very much for these nice words. Actually, you know, this is very complimentary. I don't think I deserve all this. I'm just, you know, like every one of you, trying hard to get better, trying hard to learn, trying hard to help my patients. You know, I'm a sinful person. You know, everybody is sinful. I'm trying to correct myself. I try to live, you know, my life as a good human being, good to myself, good to my family, you know, good to the community. I'm not perfect. I'm trying to, but I will never achieve this. God help all of us. And I'm very, very grateful for this nice talk. You know, if you allow me to give this talk, because this is one of the passion. And actually, I was learning rather than giving the talk. You know, because, you know, I spend an awful lot of time reading about the, you know, the good presentation. I knew about it, and I could feel about, you know, good presentation, but I wanted to know exactly, you know, how good presentation should be, you know, and this is why, you know, give me the chance to read more and understand it better. And I came to the conclusion that no one is perfect, no one is a good